Hey folks, I'm Rob.
And I'm Nathan.
And we are Two Guys in a Ride. Say, Nate, where are we at today?
Hey Rob, today we are at the Chanhassen Autoplex and we are with the Jaguar F-Type Club, or as they like to be known, the F'ers.
That's right.
Now that was from them, not from me.
So what are we doing?
Hey, we are going to take an opportunity to take a look and interview the owners of these beautiful 8 F-Type Jaguars and learn about their cars today.
That's right. But say, folks, before we do, take a moment to give us a like, click on that subscribe button down below, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. So, I don't know. What else is there, Nate? Hey, what do you say?
Let's go for a ride.
All right.
Hi folks, I'm Nate with Two Guys and a Ride, and today we're here at the Chanhassen Autoplex and we're with members of the Jaguar Club of Minnesota and also a subgroup of that, the F-Type Club, or the F'ers as they like to be known.
We're calling ourselves the F'ers.
And we are with Forrest here.
How do you do?
Forrest, thanks for agreeing to talk with us.
That's a pleasure.
And behind us is your F-Type, so tell us about the basics here.
The basics here. Well, probably people who are looking at your F-Type stuff have some understanding of the different engines and the like. This one's an R, that's the V8.
And it is supercharged.
Yes, all F-Types are supercharged. Yep. For what it's worth, that's 550 horse, just over 500 foot-pounds of torque. The beautiful thing about supercharged is it's right now. There's no torque lag.
Right, it's not turbo.
Right. Yeah. That particular engine is the one that's also in the SVR,
okay.
But they just tuned that up another 25 horse.
So that's got 575.
575, and then a touch more torque.
Okay.
Right. But they're both all-wheel drive. I think there's one two-wheel drive here, if I recall correctly.
We did a review on that one,
Yep. And the two-wheel drives are renowned for burning through tires, but they're drift monsters.
I bet they are.
Yes.
So you chose to get a convertible.
Indeed.
So you've had a little history with convertibles. So going back a long ways, right?
For what it's worth, I've had a convertible since college.
Okay.
And I just fell in love with my very first one, and I've always made sure I had a convertible sports car of some sort ever since.
You know, there are a couple of differences on the convertible besides obviously the convertible roof. I mean, you've got these little pieces that pop up. Right. You got the windscreen. It is a retractable, and it goes right back up, right? I mean,
you can do 35 miles an hour.
You can put up and down.
It goes up and down in just a few seconds.
You also have some differences at the rear end. You don't have quite the same lines as the coupe.
Right.
You have a little bit of different fender, but you have got a wider trunk.
Yes, and then for what it's worth, that means that the spoiler is wider on the convertible. The trunk, though it's much smaller inside, there's just no room for anything inside, though we've learned to find the right pieces of luggage
to fit
maximize
in there.
it.
Right.
We can get 2 of our rollerboards in there and stuffed up under there, 1 3-seater, and that's enough to go on a long weekend. But I like the rear end of the convertible better than a little bit than the coupes.
It has a slightly different because of those hips. Yeah,
that's just me.
The spoiler.
Yeah.
On a coupe, it activates at certain speeds. Automatically, there's really no setting it, right?
50 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour.
And you can actually physically,
here we can push a button and run it when we want.
Okay.
And that one, I don't know if you have to be stopped, but I know that it's a special mode that they call for cleaning, I think you have to be not traveling to be able to push the button inside and have that spoiler come up so you can get in and clean it.
Okay, so interesting. Little different things. Is this sometimes on convertibles? They're what they do. They undersling them, so there's a little bit more cross members tied together, or so you have a little bit more rigidity because you don't have the roof. What does the F-Type have?
Most design does take that into account. For what it's worth, with the F-Type, the first F-Type made was a convertible. Designed as a convertible from the get-go, such that it's the same structure in both cars, even though that will be stiffer because, of course, it's got the hard top.
Okay.
But no, not more cross bracing than convertible than that.
But that was the first F-Type ever made.
So
it was purposely built as a convertible,
yes, it was.
And then they added the coupe. Oh, that's
Correct.
interesting.
Yep.
So, what is one of your favorite memories of this car?
I probably shouldn't tell it on camera.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me ask you another question.
That car is so fun at speed.
I understand that sometimes when your club goes out, you're driving along with them.
Right.
I understand.
You gotta keep up.
I understand that the power steering
There's somebody behind
on
you.
the convertible doesn't work as well as the coupes.
Yeah, that's right. Smart ass.
And when you go around the corner, you can't go as fast as the coupes.
Yeah.
And something happened to you because you couldn't turn fast enough.
Oh, I'm afraid that I did not pay attention to the fact that I had wet tires that day. So I slid into the grass and I'll never live it down.
I've heard a couple of people have called you up later asking for grass turf from underneath
That's right.
your car.
Wondering if I'll go mow their lawn for them. I tell you.
Well,
Sandra didn't know that. I'm going to hear about that later now.
So you've been adventurous with this car.
Oh, for sure. I bought it to drive it and have fun with. I might add, this is my daily driver, and I drive it all winter.
Oh, so it's got an insulated top.
Oh, yeah, quite. In fact, when the top's up on this car, it doesn't sound any noisier than the hard top.
Wow.
Yeah.
They've got really good insulation built in there.
Just wonderful. I bought winter tires.
Yep.
And I bought separate winter rims because Minnesota snow and salt and stuff is so hard on a rim. I bought special rims. And then instead of buying the same size and shape tire with the snow or winter tread, I bought the same size for the rears as are in the fronts.
Okay.
Because in Minnesota, when you're going through slush, you want to cut through it a little bit, and I don't need that extra traction in the winter time for speed around the corners and what have you. I want to have it for cutting through the slush and having a little bit nicer on the ice. Plus, now I can rotate the things. Well, for what it's worth, that meant that the narrower on the same width as the front on the back then sits in 1.5 inches. These are 1.5 inches wider than those are. The rears are 1.5 inches wider than the fronts are. And so when I went all for the same size, with them being 1.5 inches narrower than the OEMs on the back, where they sat inside the car 1.5 inches, so I actually put 1.5 inches spacer on them to pull it out.
To pull it back out
for the sake of being able to have that same look in the winter.
Because that would really look different.
Yeah, and it didn't look right.
I mean, that's a lot of distance. To me, it doesn't seem like much, but
that didn't look right.
I mean, that'd be inside.
Right.
Right there.
That's right. And in that case, with those winter tires on the winter rims, this car handles better on the ice than our SUV Jeep Grand Cherokee does.
And that is, I mean, that's non-studded tires, right?
Right. Though I've fallen in love with the Hakkapeliitta, which has actually got a crystal molded into the rubber. So it's almost like a little ice stud molded in.
I just like the fact, Forrest, that you're the kind of guy that takes your SUV and your Jaguar convertible on the ice at the same time, just to see.
Just to see, absolutely.
Just to see. I'm bored today. Let's go see what this does.
This is nicer. It holds nicer on the ice.
So, you've been a member of the Minnesota, the Jaguar Club of Minnesota.
Since I bought the car.
And since you bought the car, and also the subgroup, the F-Type club.
I basically started this little F-Type club. I found that there weren't. I was the first F-Type.
Oh, really?
Except for Holly's.
Okay.
And she wasn't driving it when I first was introduced to the Jaguar Club, and then realized she's got one too. And so I said, boy, we got to get some F-Types together. And I found that when I would go out to Cars and Coffee or what have you, people would walk and look and say, oh, that's nice, that's a Jaguar. And then they'd go off and look at the other cars. But I found if I could get 2 or 3 of us to come to the group together, well, then they'll mill about and ask questions and learn a little bit about the car. And I'm hoping to get more and more of the world to realize really the following. It's a fantastic car. It's a particularly wonderful supercar for the dollar, and for what it's worth, JLR really started when Ford owned them, and now Tata is just working like all hell to try to figure out how to make that particular car get a decent reputation as a reliable car, a well-built car. And it is, but the world doesn't believe it yet.
Right. Well, you know, Jaguar doesn't exactly have a history of that.
That's the problem.
And it's been so long. And every owner we've talked to today has mentioned the fact that their car has been reliable.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons that they bought it, was because they did the research and it said,
bingo,
that car is reliable, which are two words that you don't normally associate together, Jaguar and reliable.
Right.
But
that's exactly right.
It's great to know that they've come out with some, because I love the lines, and I think everyone's always loved the looks of Jaguar.
I think it's one of the cool cars.
And then to couple that with reliability would be a great feat.
And it works as a daily driver.
All right, so if somebody wanted to find out more about, well, how would I find out more about Jaguars, or how would I find out more about your club, what would they do?
First of all, Jaguar Club of Minnesota, one of the largest in the nation, but is not a focus on F-types. My little subgroup, which we have fun calling the F'ers, is really, I've set up a little private Facebook page that I call F-type owners of Minnesota. There are many F-type or Jaguar F-type owner Facebook pages. The one of Minnesota will get us together with a group like this and help us go on cruises and roll into car shows and the like together.
Awesome. So, if you had to pick one favorite thing, and it doesn't have to be the most favorite, just one favorite thing that you just really like about this car. Driving it, hearing the sound.
I have a distinct answer to that.
Okay.
It's two different cars. Push the buttons for comfort mode, and it's just a beautiful daily driver, and I'm happy to drive it over the road 5 hours straight. Push the button for muscle car mode, and it's just as much fun as any car I've ever driven, and I've owned a number of sports cars.
That is just awesome.
This car is a stick shift car without a clutch. This car is a muscle car in a tuxedo. And it has a 200 millisecond stick shift. Whew. And with 8 speeds, you can shift this thing anytime you want, at any speed you want, to make it make the noise or the acceleration that you want. That's distinctly my favorite thing about this car.
Awesome. Well, you know, I always think that being part of a club, you know, like your Jaguar Club, is like a family.
Oh, yeah.
And eventually you make those connections to other people. You share a common interest. And really the common interest is not necessarily, I mean, I think the thread that ties you together is the brand. And maybe in this case it's the F-type. But really it's just cars.
Yeah. Oh, cars completely, yes.
Right.
But in this case, this little sub-club, of course, is the car.
Right.
People who love F-types. So we're the F'ers, we are. I guess that makes me the mother F'er.
And on that note, thank you so much for spending your time with us and letting us learn about your car.
Thank you very much.
All right, hey folks, I'm Nathan with Two Guys That Ride, and today we're out here at the Chanhassen Autoplex having a fantastic day, and we are talking to the owners of some F-type Jaguars, and they are also members of the Jaguar Club of Minnesota. So today I'm with Peter, and Peter owns this stunningly beautiful 400 Sport F-type behind us. So Peter, let's before we get into the car, how come you got an F-type? What was the draw?
Well, when these first came out and I saw them, I thought they were like the most gorgeous car you could possibly see. And it took me a couple of years until I finally pulled the trigger. This one in particular, I found out in Chicago. It was the right time. It was everything I wanted. I love the 400 Sport, which we can get into, but you know, it was just my kind of a pinnacle. This is like kind of my first kind of sporty performance car that, you know, go and have fun with. But also, as kind of sporty and everything it is, it's I don't want to say it's a practical car, but it's got a pretty big boot for what it is, you know. You can fit a lot, go grocery shopping, you can fit a lot of stuff back there. It's an all-wheel drive car. I drive it in the winter.
So you drive this all the time?
I drive it full throughout the year, in the winter and the summer, anytime. So
so my next question is, you know, for a lot of people, Peter, a car is just a car. As long as it runs and it gets them to wherever they need, that's it. Obviously, someone who buys an F-type Jaguar, that's not the case. So what has been your drawn to the, you know, into cars?
I mean, I think from being a kid, you know, my dad was always into cars. I got introduced to it through that. He grew up, you know, with the Tornados and the Chevelles and stuff like that. And we still have some of them actually too. But coming in, you know, the Jaguar was something, I think it was, you know, it has the elegance and then the looks and the beauty, but the simplification of just the actual look of the actual car. It's something I'm attracted to. It's a good looking car.
In one of our videos, we've taken a look at some of the S-types. Okay, so, or the F-type S, I should say.
Yep.
And you have an F-type Sport, or it's a 400 Sport, or sometimes known as the 400P. Which we don't know why they call it a 400P. That must be a British thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the difference? Because basically this is an S.
This is an S. It's a V6. A lot of what has to do with the 400, it was a special edition they did in 2018 just to sell that year. I'm not sure how many were made.
Okay.
But a lot of it's stylistic. You'll see like the front splitter. You'll see it on the inside with the contrast stitching.
Right. You'll see that.
And the badging, of course, the 400. You'll also see it. Rocker panels were a bit different, and some of the infotainment system, they had some different features in there, like it integrated with GoPro to overlay your, like, you know, your track speed and your G's and stuff over your footage. So some more gimmicky maybe things like that, but you know, it's cool, right? And then anything else that would be different about this, they did have a brake upgrade. I think, you know, there may be some other little things in there, but
okay, now you added the rims.
I added these, yeah. The stock ones, I put winter tires on them. I use them for winter tires. These I got summer tires on them. I did the yellow inside to kind of match with the actual badging yellow.
That looks sharp.
I love it. It's great. It's a little pop of color. They're kind of a pain to keep clean, but when they're clean, they look good.
I noticed two differences. One is you don't have the double fin.
Nope.
Okay, and your lights went away from what they call bug eyes, which do track, to LEDs.
Yep. The LEDs are nice, you know, and they don't track per se, but they're so bright. I mean, you put those on, it floods.
It floods. So the reason, the thinking is you don't need to track anymore because it's so bright.
Love the look of them.
The spoiler kit down below and on the sides and in the back, that's
all for the 400.
That's all for the
part of the styling package.
Okay. All the F-types have labeling in the headset here,
Yep,
or at least most of them, but you have the 400 written on yours.
And the yellow contrast stitching with the black I loved. It's subtle, but it's cool.
All right, so, you know, belonging to a club, a motor club, and we found this from, I think, everyone that we've talked to in all the clubs.
Yeah.
But there are just certain aspects of the club that they really like. For you, what's one of your favorite things about belonging to the Jaguar Club and the F-type club?
I think it's great just having like-minded people around you. You know, you all love certain cars, and you know Jaguars are beautiful, wonderful. They have a great history, and particularly being part of the F-type club, the F'ers. You know, we love these cars so much, and it's nice to be around like-minded people and talk about why we like them. You know, seeing how maybe we personalize our cars here and there, or why we got a certain model, and just the stories behind it. You know, going for cruises and such. It's nice to have like that community around it too.
For people that aren't in car clubs, that aren't in some sort of automotive club, they don't realize sometimes what those clubs are.
Yeah,
and
it's more just
fantastic.
about driving and
doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what car you have.
You know, there's stuff beyond all that,
right.
that like-mindedness, and yeah.
Well, one of the other things I think that people have commented on is, especially people who just join a club, they're like, well, it was great. I had a problem with this. I found someone in the club who either knew what to do or knew where to go and find the answer. If I wanted to option my car, do something, someone in the club is going to have information about where to do that, or some product is good or not good, or so yeah, that's just really, I think,
bouncing ideas off each other. You know, online too, the Facebook, you know, there's all Facebook groups for these groups too online, so it's a big forum of, you know, stuff like that. What do you guys recommend for this? You know, this and this. So
it's always nice to go someplace where you can talk about your car endlessly, and everyone else isn't like,
there he goes.
There he goes again. All right.
Yeah.
So, Peter, what is one of your favorite things about this car? Could be the drive, could be anything about it.
The exhaust note, I love. It's kind of a raw car, and when you get driving with it, it has these beautiful things and a lot of high-tech stuff, but compared to some of, like, if you're going to jump into a Porsche or Mercedes or something, you know, it's a stiffer suspension, and you feel it more. You know, you really can
feel connected to the road.
Yeah. It's a really fun drive, and like I said, this is an all-wheel version. I drive it in the winter. I've been on 2 different rallies down south with it, down to Tail of the Dragon, and it handles like a dream. It's so much fun, and you just go. And I've had it for, I put 25,000 miles on it in the last 2.5 years, and I haven't had one thing wrong with it.
So, you know, one of the nice things about having you guys come out here and seeing your cars is that these are all cars that are driven.
Yeah.
These aren't collector cars that sit up on, you know, in kind of a museum atmosphere. They're actually, and you drive yours all year long. And like you said, it can get some scratches on, and that's just, you don't want them, but there's just part of driving a car.
Part of what it is,
it's going to happen at some point. Well, Peter, thank you so much for spending your time with us
Thank
today
you
and
guys.
talking about your beautiful 400 Sport F-Type. Sure appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.